The sky was burning. Smoke and ash rolled across the red plains like waves of sorrow. Sergeant Ryan Hale, a human soldier, moved through the wreckage of the battlefield, his boots sinking into scorched soil. The war between the Terran Alliance and the Korean Empire had turned this place into a graveyard of steel and fire. Yet even among the ruins he searched, not for glory, not for victory, but for life. His armor was cracked, one arm bleeding through the fabric, but he ignored the pain. His scanner beeped faintly, showing a weak life signal somewhere under the collapsed remains of a silver transport craft. He frowned. Every human patrol had already passed through this area. Whoever was down there had been left behind. He dropped his rifle and began clearing debris with his bare hands. Every piece of metal cut deeper into his skin, but he didn't stop. Then a sound and faint trembling almost lost in the smoke. "Help! Please!" Ryan froze. The voice was small and broken, not the tone of a soldier. He pushed harder, lifting a steel plate with all his strength. Beneath it, lying among shattered wires and glass, was a girl, not human but unmistakably alive. Her skin shimmered faintly blue, her eyes silver like moonlight. She was badly injured, her clothes torn and stained with blood. On her chest was a broken emblem, a royal crest of the Korean Empire. Ryan's breath caught. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. "A princess?" The girl blinked weakly, fear flickering in her eyes. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Don't hurt me." Ryan slowly removed his helmet, showing his tired face. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you." His voice was low, calm, the voice of someone who had seen too much death already. She looked confused. "But you're human." "Yeah," he said simply, kneeling beside her. "And you're alive. That's what matters." He reached for his med kit, injecting her with a stabilizer. Her breathing steadied, though her eyes still filled with tears. She tried to speak again, but her voice cracked. Why are you helping me?" Ryan sighed, wiping the soot from her forehead with his gloved hand. "Because no one deserves to die alone out here." For a long moment, neither spoke. The sound of distant thunder rolled across the empty fields, echoing like ghosts of the fallen. Ryan gently lifted her in his arms, surprised by how light she was. She gasped in pain but didn't resist. Her head rested against his chest, hearing the steady beat of a human heart. Something she had been taught was cold and cruel, yet it felt warm now. He carried her through the smoke toward the nearest shelter, his boots crunching over twisted metal and bones of the war. Every step was heavy, but his grip never loosened. The girl's tears mixed with dust on his armor as she whispered weakly, "You should leave me. My people will kill you if they find you with me." Ryan gave a small, tired smile. "Guess I'll just have to avoid your people then." She looked up at him, truly looked, and saw not a monster, not the savage she had been taught to fear, but a man carrying her as if her life meant something. Her chest ached with a strange emotion she couldn't name. As they reached a small broken bunker, Ryan laid her down gently on a blanket. He started a small fire with his rations and placed a thermal sheet over her. She shivered, eyes wide, watching him in silence. Outside, the night grew darker. The stars were hidden behind clouds of war. But in that tiny bunker, a quiet warmth grew between two souls from opposite worlds. Ryan sat near the entrance, weapon across his knees, eyes still scanning for danger. He didn't rest. He didn't speak. But the princess could feel the safety in his presence. A human soldier, broken yet strong, guarding her like she was the most important thing left in the universe. As sleep finally took her, a single thought passed through her mind. Maybe. Everything they said about humans was wrong, and in that silent, shattered world, a fragile bond began between an alien princess and the human who refused to let her die. When the princess awoke, the first thing she felt was warmth. A small fire flickered nearby, casting soft orange light on the rough bunker walls. Her body ached, but the pain was dull now, muted by the medicine the human soldier had given her. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then the memories came rushing back, the crash, the smoke, and the man who had carried her through the flames. She turned her head and saw him. Sergeant Ryan Hale sat near the entrance, his weapon resting on his knees, his eyes fixed on the dark outside. The dim firelight reflected off his tired face, making him look both strong and lonely. He had been awake all night. The princess, Lirana, watched him silently. She had heard terrible stories about humans, that they were cold-hearted, brutal, and greedy. But the man before her was nothing like that. He was quiet, protective, and strangely gentle. Her voice came out weak but clear. You didn't leave." Ryan looked over his shoulder. His lips curved into a small smile. "Didn't plan to." She blinked in confusion. "Why?" "I'm your enemy," he shrugged, adjusting the rifle strap. "Right now you're just someone who needs help." "That's all I see." Liana didn't know how to answer. She pulled the thermal blanket tighter around her, the soft heat calming her trembling body. Outside, the wind howled across the ruined land, carrying the cries of distant machines and dying fires. The world was broken, yet inside that small bunker, a strange peace lived. Ryan broke a piece of ration bread in half and handed it to her. "Eat, you need strength." She stared at it for a long time. "You'd share your food." "With me?" He chuckled softly. "It's not much, but I've got enough." Her fingers brushed his as she took the bread. His hand was rough, calloused, but warm. For some reason, that warmth stayed with her longer than the food did. After a while, she whispered, "My ship was carrying diplomats. My mother, the Queen, she must think I'm dead." Ryan's expression softened. "We'll get you back to her." She looked down. "You don't even know me. Why risk yourself?" "Because that's what we're supposed to do," he said simply. "Doesn't matter who you are." Liana studied his face, the scars, the tired eyes, the quiet strength. He didn't look like a man of hate. He looked like someone who had already lost too much. For a moment, she wanted to ask about his past, but the sadness in his eyes made her stop. Instead, she said softly, "You humans are strange." Ryan smiled faintly. "Yeah, I've heard that before." Hours passed slowly. Ryan used a metal plate to cover the bunker's opening, blocking most of the cold. He moved with care, making sure the fire didn't die. Every now and then, Liana would glance at him, wondering why this human, her enemy, cared so much. As night deepened, thunder rumbled far away. The sound made her flinch. Ryan noticed. "Don't worry," he said gently. "It's just the storm." "You're safe here." "Safe," she repeated softly, tasting the word. It had been a long time since she felt it. Ryan leaned against the wall, his eyes finally closing for a brief rest. His armor was scratched, his hand bandaged, yet he still looked steady, like a rock standing in a raging sea. Liana lay down again, watching the fire's last glow. She thought of her mother, of the palace, of her people who hated humans, and then she thought of this man who had carried her without asking for anything in return. She whispered quietly, though he was already half asleep, "Thank you, human." He didn't answer, but a faint smile crossed his face. Perhaps he had heard her after all. The wind outside cried like ghosts of war, but inside the ruined bunker, something fragile had begun to bloom. Trust. And though neither of them knew it yet, that trust would soon change the fate of both their worlds. Morning came slowly, painting the battlefield ruins in pale orange light. Smoke still rose from distant wrecks and the air smelled of metal and ash. Sergeant Ryan Hale stood at the bunker's entrance, checking the map on his cracked tablet. He looked exhausted but determined. The Princess Liana sat quietly behind him, her silver eyes full of worry. "Is it safe?" she asked softly. Ryan shook his head. "Safe? No, but staying here is worse. Patrols will sweep the area soon. We move." She nodded, though her heart raced with fear. Her legs still hurt from the crash and her body felt weak. But when he offered his hand, she took it without hesitation. His grip was firm and warm, steadying her like a promise that she wasn't alone. They stepped out into the wasteland, two figures from enemy worlds walking side by side. The sky above them was heavy with smoke and the ground cracked under their boots. Every few minutes they'd hear the whirring of drones far away, forcing them to hide behind broken walls or shattered vehicles. Liana limped, her pace slowing. Ryan noticed and knelt before her. "Here," he said quietly. "Climb on." Her eyes widened. "What?" "No, I can walk." "Not fast enough," he interrupted gently. "You'll slow us both down." "Don't argue. Just hold on." She hesitated, her pride fighting her pain. But then she saw the serious look in his eyes. Not anger, not pity, but concern. Slowly, she climbed onto his back, wrapping her arms around his neck. His armor felt cold at first, but the rhythm of his steps soon lulled her into a strange calm. For the first time since the crash, she didn't feel afraid. After hours of walking, they stopped near an old comms tower half buried in the sand. Ryan set her down gently and checked the horizon through his binoculars. "We'll rest here," he said. Still a long way to the border. She nodded, breathing heavily. You humans always move so fast. He smirked. We get restless sitting still. She watched him as he cleaned his weapon and adjusted the bandage on his arm. His face was hard, but his eyes, they carried something she didn't understand. Sadness, maybe, or loss. After a long silence, she asked softly, "Why are you like this?" He looked up. Like what? You could have left me to die. You could have taken me as a hostage. But you didn't. Why? Ryan was quiet for a while, staring at the horizon. Then he said, "Because I've seen enough people die in this war. I don't want to add one more face to the pile." She lowered her gaze, her throat tightening. "Do you hate us?" "My people," he sighed. "I hate what war turns people into. Doesn't matter which side." The words sank deep into her heart. She had been raised to believe humans were monsters, emotionless invaders who burned planets without mercy. But sitting beside him now, watching his quiet strength and gentle patience, she realized something. He wasn't a monster. He was just human. That night they built a small fire inside the broken tower. The wind outside howled like distant cries. Lirana stared into the flames, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you think my mother's alive?" Ryan looked at her, his expression softening. "If she's anything like you, she's still fighting." Her lips trembled at his words. "You think I'm strong?" He smiled faintly. "You survived a crash and you're walking through a war zone. Yeah, I'd say you're strong." For a moment she looked away, hiding the small smile that formed on her face. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not as a royal, not as a fragile symbol, but as a person. Later, as she drifted to sleep by the fire, she heard his voice again. Quiet, almost like a promise to himself. "I'll get you home, no matter what it takes." Lirana wanted to reply, but her eyes closed and sleep claimed her. Ryan sat awake, watching the stars that flickered faintly through the clouds. He didn't know why he cared so much. Maybe because saving her meant saving the last piece of his own humanity. And under that broken sky, a soldier and a princess walked the thin line between war and something far more powerful: hope. The next morning came with a strange silence. The wind had stopped, the smoke had thinned, and for the first time in days, Lirana could see the sky, pale and broken, but still beautiful. She stood beside Sergeant Ryan Hale, watching the horizon. He had been awake again the whole night, keeping guard like always. "We're getting close," Ryan said, studying the map on his cracked device. "If we cross the canyon ahead, your people's territory isn't far." Her heart leapt. "Then, I'll finally see my mother again?" He nodded faintly. "That's the plan." They started walking again. The land around them was nothing but dust and ruins, silent reminders of the war that had destroyed everything. Lirana walked a little behind him, her eyes fixed on his back. His armor was scratched and dented, his movements slower now. She could tell he was hurt, though he never complained. "Your arm," she said quietly. "It's bleeding again." Ryan looked down at the wound and smiled weakly. "Just a scratch," she frowned. "That's not a scratch. You should rest." He turned toward her, his tired blue eyes soft. "If I stop, we both die. So let's keep going, princess." Her chest tightened. He always said it lightly, but she could hear the pain hidden in his voice. She wanted to argue, but she knew he wouldn't listen. So instead, she helped, taking his pack when he grew too weak, guiding him when his steps faltered. Hours passed. The sky grew darker. A storm was building on the horizon, thick clouds rumbling with thunder and ash. They quickened their pace, trying to reach the canyon before it hit, but then the distant whine of engines echoed through the air. Ryan froze instantly, his instincts kicking in. "Down!" he whispered sharply. They dropped behind a broken wall just as 3 enemy drones appeared above the ridge, scanning the ground with red lights. Lirana's heart pounded in her chest. Ryan readied his rifle quietly, checking his ammo. Only 3 bullets left. The drones hovered closer. Their sensors beeped. "Run," Ryan whispered. "Head for the canyon." "What about you?" she asked, her voice shaking. He didn't answer, just smiled. "Go." Before she could protest, he stepped out of cover and fired. The gunshots cracked through the air, echoing across the wasteland. One drone exploded in a burst of smoke, then another. The third turned, firing plasma bolts that scorched the ground near him. Ryan rolled aside, shouting over his shoulder, "Go, Lirana, now!" Tears blurred her vision as she ran toward the canyon, the explosions lighting the sky behind her. She looked back once and saw him, a lone human standing against machines far stronger than him, fighting not for himself, but for her. Then came a loud blast. The ground shook. Ryan fell to his knees, clutching his side where the armor had split open. Still, he fired one last shot, and the final drone crashed into the sand in a ball of flame. Lyrana ran back, ignoring the danger.
"Ryan!" she cried, dropping beside him.
Blood soaked his uniform, his face pale. He gave a weak chuckle. "Told you, I don't leave anyone behind." She pressed her hands over his wound, trembling. "You saved me again. Why do you keep doing this?" He looked at her with tired eyes, his voice soft. "Because you deserve to live. Because maybe saving you means there's still something good left in all this." Tears streamed down her face. "Don't say that. You're going to make it, please." Ryan's hand touched her cheek gently. "You sound like someone who still believes in hope." "I do," she whispered. "Because of you." He smiled faintly, then closed his eyes for a moment, breathing slowly. The storm finally broke, rain falling like shards of glass from the dark sky. Lyrana held him close as thunder roared around them. When the storm passed, Ryan opened his eyes again, weak but alive. "You're going to lead me now," he said quietly. "Your turn to keep me safe." She nodded fiercely, her tears mixing with the rain. "I promise." And so under the broken sky, the princess who had once feared humans now carried one through the storm, a soldier who had given everything to protect her. That night, neither spoke, but they both knew something had changed. It was no longer just survival. It was a bond deeper than fear, born from sacrifice, pain, and something quietly beautiful. Trust. The rain had finally stopped. The sky above the canyon was gray and quiet, and the sound of dripping water echoed softly through the stone walls. Lyrana sat beside Sergeant Ryan Hale, who lay weakly against a rock, his face pale and his uniform soaked with blood. He had lost a lot of strength during the storm, but his eyes still held that same calm fire, the same look that had carried them through everything. She tore another strip from her cloak and wrapped it tightly around his wound. "Hold still," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "You give orders like a soldier." She looked up at him, her silver eyes glistening. "You fight like a fool," she replied softly. "A brave fool." He laughed weakly, then coughed, wincing in pain. "Fair enough." They sat in silence for a moment. The world around them seemed frozen, quiet after all the chaos. Lyrana's thoughts drifted to her mother, the queen, and the kingdom she had lost contact with days ago. Her chest ached with longing. She didn't even know if her mother was still alive. The thought brought tears to her eyes again. Ryan noticed. "You should try your calm," he said slowly. Maybe the storm cleared the interference. She blinked, then reached into her pocket. The small silver communicator had been damaged during the crash, but she tried to fix the broken switch. Sparks flickered, then a faint signal light blinked. Her hands trembled as she tuned the frequency. Static filled the air, harsh, empty noise. She almost gave up, but then a voice, weak, trembling, but unmistakable. "Lyrana, my daughter is that you?" Her breath caught in her throat. Mother, it's me." The sound of crying came through the static. "Lyrana, my child, we thought you were gone." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she clutched the communicator tightly. "I'm alive, Mother. I'm safe." The Queen's voice shook with emotion. "Where are you? Who saved you? Tell me." Lyrana turned her head toward Ryan, who watched quietly from where he sat. He looked away as if he didn't belong in that conversation, but she wouldn't let him fade into the background. Her voice softened. "A human soldier found me. He carried me through the ruins. He saved my life." There was a long silence on the other end. Even through the static, Lyrana could feel her mother's shock. Humans and Kareen had been enemies for years. The Queen's voice finally came again, quiet, confused, but full of disbelief. "A human?"
"He helped you?"
"Yes," Lyrana said firmly. "He protected me when I was weak. He fought drones, storms, and death itself to bring me this far. I owe him everything." Ryan lowered his gaze, uncomfortable under her words. "You don't owe me anything," he murmured. But she shook her head, pressing the communicator closer. "Mother, he's the reason I'm still alive." The Queen's voice broke into tears. "My child, thank the stars. Thank him for me." Lyrana looked at Ryan with tearful eyes. "She thanks you." Ryan managed a small smile. "Just glad you made it." The communicator crackled again, the signal fading. Lirana, listen to me, the Queen said quickly. There's a rescue team heading your way. Send me your location. Lirana entered the coordinates, her fingers trembling. Please hurry, she whispered. He's hurt? We'll find you, her mother promised, her voice trembling with emotion. Hold on, my child. Hold on. The signal cut off, leaving only silence. Lirana lowered the device and turned back to Ryan. They're coming, she said softly. You'll be safe soon. He nodded, leaning back against the rock. Good, maybe I'll finally get some rest. She smiled through her tears. Don't you dare close your eyes yet, he chuckled weakly. Bossy princess? Lirana brushed the wet hair from his forehead, her hands shaking. You saved me, she whispered. Now it's my turn to save you. For the first time since the crash, she felt something stronger than fear. Hope. The signal had reached her mother. Rescue was coming. The nightmare was almost over. But as Ryan closed his eyes for a brief moment, Lirana realized something deeper. This human wasn't just her savior. He had become her friend, her protector, and perhaps something far more important. Because in a world torn by war, one act of kindness had done what armies never could. It had brought two hearts, two worlds closer together. The sound of engines echoed through the canyon. Lirana stood at the edge of the rocks, her eyes scanning the gray sky as a fleet of silver ships appeared in the distance. Her heart pounded with both joy and fear. After so many days of pain and struggle, rescue had finally come. Her mother had kept her promise. Behind her, Sergeant Ryan Hale sat against a boulder, his breathing slow, his skin pale. The rain from the night before had washed the blood from his armor, but it could not hide the deep wound beneath. Still, when he saw her face light up, he smiled. Looks like your ride's here, he said softly. Lirana turned to him, her eyes filled with tears. They're coming for both of us, she said firmly. You're not staying here, he chuckled weakly. Pretty sure your people don't want me anywhere near their ships. I don't care what they want, she said sharply, kneeling beside him. You're coming with me. I won't let them hurt you. Before he could reply, a bright beam of light descended from the nearest ship, and a group of Korean royal guards appeared, tall figures in shining armor, their weapons drawn. They moved quickly toward her, forming a protective circle. When they saw Ryan, their hands immediately went to their blasters. Step away from the princess, one shouted. Lirana stood up, placing herself between them and Ryan. Lower your weapons, she commanded, her voice steady and full of authority. The soldiers hesitated. Your Highness, that creature is a hero, she interrupted sharply. He saved my life when no one else could. He fought for me. He bled for me. You will show him respect. The guards looked uncertain. None of them dared to move. Just then the air shimmered, and from the largest ship a transport descended. The ramp opened slowly, and out stepped Queen Seraphine, her silver robe flowing in the wind, her face pale but radiant. Mother, Lirana cried out, running toward her. The Queen's eyes filled with tears as she opened her arms. Lirana, my daughter! The princess fell into her mother's embrace, sobbing uncontrollably. The world seemed to stand still as the two clung to each other, their hearts breaking and healing all at once. Yes, Mom, Lirana whispered between tears, her voice trembling. I'm safe. I'm safe thanks to him. Queen Seraphine's eyes followed her daughter's gaze to the wounded human sitting quietly among the rocks. For a long moment she said nothing. She had heard the stories, the cruelty of the human armies, the endless destruction. But the man before her looked nothing like a monster. He looked like a soldier who had given everything to protect her child. Slowly, the Queen walked toward him. The guards tried to stop her, but she raised her hand. Leave us. Ryan struggled to stand, but his leg gave out. Your Majesty, he said weakly. She's safe now. That's all that matters. The Queen knelt before him, her regal eyes soft with gratitude. You risked your life for her. For my daughter. Why? Ryan gave a faint smile. Didn't think about it, just seemed like the right thing to do. For a moment, the Queen's eyes glistened. She reached out and touched his shoulder gently. There is more honor in your heart than in many of my own soldiers. Behind her, Lirana watched, tears still streaming down her cheeks. Seeing the two of them, her human savior and her mother standing together, she felt something powerful stir inside her. Hope. The Queen turned to her guards. Prepare a medical pod. Treat him immediately. The soldiers looked shocked. But your majesty, I said now, she commanded. They obeyed at once, lifting Ryan carefully onto a hover stretcher. He winced but said nothing. As they carried him toward the ship, Lirana walked beside him, holding his hand tightly. See? She whispered with a trembling smile. You're not alone anymore. He looked at her, his voice barely a whisper. Didn't save you for a reward, princess. I know, she said softly. That's what makes it mean so much. As the ramp closed and the ship began to rise, Lirana glanced out the window. The canyon below faded into the distance, the same place where she had almost died, and where she had found something she never expected to find in war: human kindness. And in that moment, as the stars began to shine above the clouds, both worlds took one quiet step toward peace, all because a soldier chose compassion over hate. The healing chamber was quiet, filled with the gentle hum of alien machines. Soft blue light bathed the room where Sergeant Ryan Hale lay resting, wrapped in white bandages and strange glowing threads that pulsed like living veins. For the first time in weeks, there was no pain, only peace. Through the glass walls, Princess Lirana watched him closely. Her hands were pressed together, her golden eyes wet with tears she could no longer hide. He looked fragile yet strong, a warrior resting after a long fight. The door slid open behind her. Queen Seraphine entered, her footsteps light, her expression both proud and sorrowful. He will recover, she said softly. You're human. He is tougher than he looks. Lirana turned toward her mother. He's not my human, she said, though her voice trembled. He's a friend, a protector. The Queen smiled gently. You say that as if there's a difference. For a while, both stood in silence, watching the man who had changed their lives. When Ryan finally opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the princess sitting beside him. Still alive, huh? He whispered with a faint grin. Her smile broke through the tears. You scared me, she said. I thought I lost you. Sorry to disappoint, he said weakly, chuckling before wincing in pain. Guess I'm too stubborn to die. She reached for his hand. You saved me, Ryan. You saved my people. My mother owes you everything. He looked at her, his tired eyes soft. You don't owe me anything, princess. I didn't do it for a kingdom. I did it because it was right. Queen Seraphine stepped forward then, regal yet warm. Sergeant Hale, she said, our worlds have long hated each other. But because of you, I have my daughter back. You've reminded us that courage and kindness can come from anywhere, even from those we once called enemies. Ryan tried to sit up but couldn't. Guess that means peace isn't impossible after all. No, the Queen said, her voice breaking slightly. It isn't. Days passed. The human fleet and the Korean ships had called a ceasefire. Ryan's story spread across both sides like a flame in darkness. The tale of a human soldier who protected an alien princess at the cost of his own life's blood. He became a bridge between two species who had forgotten what compassion meant. When Ryan was finally strong enough to walk again, the Queen requested to see him one last time before he returned to Earth. The royal garden was quiet, filled with silver flowers that shimmered beneath twin moons. You could stay, you know, the Queen said. We would grant you land, honor, anything you wish. Ryan smiled politely. I appreciate it, Your Majesty, but I think my place is back home. I've got people to tell this story to. People who need to remember that not all enemies are monsters. The Queen bowed her head respectfully. Then you will always be welcome among us, human of honor. When she left, Lirana stepped forward slowly, her heart heavy. So this is goodbye. He nodded. For now. She bit her lip, trying not to cry. I don't want to forget you. He smiled gently, brushing a strand of her silver hair aside. Then don't, just promise me something. What? She whispered. Promise you'll live. Not as a princess, but as the person you were out there. Brave, kind, strong. The galaxy needs more people like that. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I promise. They stood like that for a moment, two souls from different worlds bound by something deeper than duty. When he finally stepped onto the transport platform, she reached out and took his hand one last time. Thank you, she said through her tears. For everything, he gave a soft smile. Just doing my job, princess. As the platform rose and the bright beam of light carried him upward, Lirana stood beneath it, watching him disappear into the stars. The night wind brushed her face, carrying his faint words like a whisper. Stay safe. She placed a hand over her heart. Yes, Mom, she murmured later, standing beside the Queen, both gazing at the sky. I'm safe, thanks to him. And for the first time in many years, the galaxy knew peace, not born from treaties or fear, but from the courage of one human heart.